Right. So today we're diving deep into the power of the subconscious mind with Dr. Joseph Murphy's book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And you specifically want to learn how your thoughts actually shape your reality, and then how to use that knowledge to make some positive changes.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic goal. And Murphy's book is really a great place to start because he emphasizes just how much power our subconscious mind has to influence our experiences. It's
Yeah.
not just about positive thinking. It's more about understanding, the mechanics of this kind of hidden force that we all have inside of us.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit, because it all starts with this idea of this duality of mind, right?
Yeah, like having two minds in one.
Yeah.
Exactly. Think of it like an iceberg. So the conscious mind is kind of the tip that you see above the water. So it's the part of your mind that's, making decisions, analyzing things. But the subconscious mind is the massive part below the surface. And that's the part that's kind of running things automatically. So things like breathing or, even our gut reactions to situations.
So it's like the conscious mind is the captain steering the ship,
Yeah.
but the subconscious is like the engine room, making
Yeah.
it all go.
That's a great analogy. And this engine room, as you called it, is incredibly powerful. And Murphy actually, he uses a really vivid story about the opera singer Caruso to illustrate this idea of the power of the subconscious and how it can sometimes work against us. So,
Yeah.
imagine, Caruso, he's about to go on stage for a huge performance and he's hit with this like debilitating stage fright.
Oh, yeah?
And he actually describes it as feeling like a little me was trying to like strangle the big me inside of him.
Wow. That's a pretty intense image. And I think we've all probably felt that sometimes, right? Like when you should be doing something, but then there's this other part of you that's like, no, I don't want to do that.
Exactly. And Murphy argues that by understanding and, even like talking to our subconscious, almost like negotiating with another person,
Yeah.
we can actually gain more control.
So it's not about like fighting this subconscious, but more about like learning to work with it.
Yeah, more about working with it, exactly. And a key part of that is understanding that the subconscious takes everything literally. So no arguments. It just acts, and Murphy actually tells this story, and it's a pretty tough one, about a man who wished that he'd give his right arm to see his daughter cured of an illness, and then tragically he loses his arm in an accident the exact moment that his daughter recovers.
Oh, wow.
So it's an extreme example.
Right. But it makes you realize how potent our thoughts and beliefs can be.
Yeah.
If we're constantly dwelling on negativity, that's what our subconscious is working with.
Exactly. So what are you feeding your subconscious?
Yeah.
Instead of saying things like, I'll never be rich, or, I'm terrible at relationships, imagine telling yourself, I'm attracting abundance into my life, or, I'm worthy of love.
Yeah, it's like giving it a new recipe to cook up a better reality.
Exactly. It's about being mindful of those automatic thoughts.
Yeah.
And choosing to focus on the ones that empower you.
So it's not about, pretending everything's perfect.
Yeah.
It's about being really deliberate about the thoughts that we allow to take root in our subconscious.
That's a great way to put it. It's like choosing the seeds that we plant in our garden. We want to make sure we're planting the ones that will grow into beautiful flowers and not weeds. And that kind of leads us to this idea of suggestion, right?
Yeah.
Both the things that we tell ourselves and the things that we absorb from other people.
So it's not just our own thoughts, but also the influences around us. Like,
Yeah.
if you're constantly surrounded by negative people or negative media, is that going to seep into your subconscious too?
It can absolutely. Murphy actually, he gives an example of a singer who used this technique of positive suggestion to overcome her stage fright.
Yeah.
She would repeat to herself, I sing beautifully, I am poised and confident. And you know what, it worked. But he contrasts this with another example, a more tragic case of a man who died because a fortune teller planted a suggestion of his death.
Wow.
And it's a very stark example,
But it highlights how important it is to really be aware of the messages that we're taking in.
yeah.
Especially the negative ones.
Exactly. And it's not about living in fear of, every suggestion that we encounter,
Right.
but more about recognizing that we have a choice in what we internalize.
Yeah, like we're not just, passive recipients of information.
Yeah,
We can actively choose what we allow into our minds.
exactly. We're not just sponges soaking up everything around us. We can choose to be more like filters, allowing the good stuff in and filtering out the negative.
So it's like being selective about the guests we invite to our mental party, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We want to make sure the vibes are positive and supportive.
Absolutely. And that's empowering because when we make that choice, we're taking control of our subconscious programming.
Right.
We're not just letting it run on autopilot.
Now, one of the things that really struck me in the book is Murphy's idea of the subconscious as a healer.
Oh, yes, he was a big believer in that.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because he really believes that our subconscious is wired for health and survival. It's always working to keep us alive, even when we're not consciously aware of it.
Yeah, like when you know, eat something bad and then you throw up.
Uh-huh.
Like that's your subconscious saying, nope, not going to let that harm you.
Exactly. And, Murphy actually, he cured himself of a sarcoma through the power of his subconscious mind.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's a really powerful example. And he suggests that we can all tap into this healing power,
Yeah.
especially while we're falling asleep.
Oh, interesting.
Because, as we drift off, our conscious mind kind of quiets down and the subconscious becomes more open to suggestion. So repeating affirmations about perfect health as you're falling asleep can be really powerful.
So it's like planting seeds of healing in the fertile ground of our subconscious.
That's a great analogy. And it brings us to the idea of prayer, which for Murphy isn't necessarily about, a deity or a specific religion, but more about aligning our conscious and subconscious minds with a creative force that he calls the creative principle.
Okay, now that sounds a little abstract. What exactly is the creative principle?
Think of it like the underlying power that drives all of creation.
Okay.
That manifests in everything from, the growth of a plant to the formation of a galaxy. And Murphy believes that by aligning ourselves with this principle, we can tap into its power to manifest our desires.
Okay, that makes more sense. So it's not about, begging for things,
No.
but about aligning our thoughts and beliefs with this creative force.
Exactly. And he actually gives this great example of this through his own pre-speech ritual.
Okay.
So before he would go on stage to give a lecture, he would visualize the audience, being healed and transformed, sending them positive energy before he even stepped on stage.
Wow, that's powerful. So are you saying that this technique of visualization can be applied to, any desire, not just health?
Absolutely. Murphy believes that by clearly visualizing what we want and feeling the emotions associated with it as if it's already happening, we're essentially giving our subconscious a blueprint to work with.
So whether it's health or, a new career or even finding love,
Yeah.
the key is to vividly imagine ourselves already experiencing it.
Exactly. It's about creating a mental and emotional reality that your subconscious can then work to manifest in the physical world.
Okay, that's powerful. And speaking of attracting things into our lives, Murphy has some fascinating ideas about wealth and success.
Oh, yes, he does.
Yeah.
He believed that at its core, wealth is a subconscious conviction. It's not just about working hard. It's also about your deep-seated beliefs about money and abundance.
So if you're constantly thinking, I'll never be rich, or money is the root of all evil, you're actually repelling wealth from your life.
Exactly. He tells a story about a pharmacist who vividly visualized owning his own store, and guess what? He ended up attracting the opportunity.
That's incredible. It's like by holding onto that vision so strongly, he created a magnetic pull that brought the right circumstances into his life.
Precisely so. What are you visualizing, a life of abundance or scarcity? Remember, your subconscious is always listening and acting on your deepest beliefs.
That's a great question for our listeners to ponder.
Yeah.
And speaking of attracting things into our lives, let's talk about relationships, specifically finding the ideal partner.
All right, so this is where Murphy dives into the importance of aligning our subconscious beliefs with our desires because, if we believe we're unworthy of love or we're carrying around, baggage from past relationships, that's what we're going to attract.
So it's not just about, going on dates and hoping to meet someone.
Right.
It's about doing that inner work
Yes.
to create a vibrational match for the kind of relationship we want.
Exactly. And he actually suggests visualizing the qualities that we desire in a partner, creating a mental template of what we're looking for.
It's almost like ordering a custom-made partner from the universe.
Kind of, but first we have to make sure our order is clear and aligned with our true desires.
Right, and he actually tells a story about a woman who was, stuck in this pattern of attracting emotionally unavailable men.
Uh-huh.
But by visualizing the qualities of a loving and supportive partner, she was able to break free from that pattern and attract a completely different kind of relationship.
Yes, she reprogrammed her relationship software, so to speak,
Yeah.
and started attracting a higher quality match.
Now, speaking of changing things, I think one of the most powerful messages in the book is about the importance of forgiveness.
Oh, absolutely. Forgiveness is key.
Yeah.
Murphy sees unforgiveness as a major roadblock to happiness and fulfillment. He says that holding on to resentment and anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yeah, it's a pretty vivid analogy.
It is.
And it makes you realize how self-destructive unforgiveness can be.
It is. It's really about letting go for your own sake.
So it's not about condoning, harmful actions, but about choosing to let go of those negative emotions that are keeping us stuck in the past.
It's about reclaiming our power and choosing peace over resentment.
Now, one of the things that really resonated with me in the book is Murphy's take on fear.
Oh, yeah, fear is a big one.
Yeah.
He sees fear as a major obstacle to living a fulfilling life.
Yeah.
But he emphasizes that fear at its core is just a thought.
Mm-hmm.
And like any thought, it can be replaced.
So instead of letting fear control us, we can actually choose to challenge it, to replace it with, thoughts of courage and confidence.
Exactly. He talks about mentally facing and overcoming our fears, almost like rehearsing for a challenging situation.
So if you're afraid of public speaking, for example, you would repeatedly visualize yourself, giving a successful presentation.
That's right. He shares a story about a young woman who used this technique to overcome her stage fright, and she actually ended up delivering a really captivating speech.
That's incredible. It shows how powerful visualization can be in reprogramming our subconscious minds.
Yeah.
To respond differently to those fear-inducing situations.
Exactly. And each time we face a fear and move through it, we grow stronger and more confident.
Yeah, it's like working out a muscle, but for your mind.
Exactly.
Now, I'm curious about this idea of the ageless mind that Murphy talks about, because it seems like he's challenging this belief that, our mental capacities inevitably decline as we age.
He is, and he provides some really inspiring examples to support his argument, like Cato, who learned Greek at the age of 80,
Wow.
or Ernestine Schumann-Heink, who achieved the peak of her musical career as a grandmother.
That's pretty amazing. So it's never too late to learn to grow and to achieve something new no matter our age.
Absolutely. Murphy reminds us that our potential for learning and growth doesn't expire.
I love that it's like saying to our listeners, don't let age define you or limit your possibilities.
Exactly. And I think that's a perfect place to pause for now.
Yeah, that's a lot to digest. We've covered so much ground already, from the duality of mind to the subconscious as a healer and the importance of, forgiveness and conquering fear.
And, it's really interesting how he kind of ties all these concepts together. It's not just about, positive thinking. It's really about understanding how our conscious and subconscious minds actually work together.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, he does get into some of the science behind it, right?
He does. He actually talks about the cerebrospinal nervous system as being kind of the communication pathway between our conscious and subconscious minds. So, when we make a conscious decision, it's like we're sending a telegram through this system.
Okay. And then the subconscious, operating through the sympathetic nervous system, receives that message and starts working on making it happen.
That's the idea. It's this fascinating connection between, our thoughts and our physical bodies.
Yeah, it makes you realize that our thoughts aren't just, floating around in our heads.
Yeah.
They have like a real impact.
They do. They have a tangible impact. And that actually leads into another question that he explores, which is what happens to the subconscious mind when we sleep?
Now, that's an interesting one because he seems to think that's when the subconscious is most active.
He does. He says that sleep isn't just about resting our bodies. It's also about giving our subconscious the space to do its work. In fact, he actually compares prayer to sleep, a state where we kind of withdraw from the outside world and connect with our inner wisdom.
It's like hitting the refresh button on our minds.
Yeah,
exactly. Allowing the subconscious to take center stage. And he actually cautions against sleep deprivation. He says it's not just about, feeling tired.
Yeah.
It's about depriving our subconscious of this vital time for renewal.
So getting enough sleep is essential for both our physical and mental well-being.
Absolutely. And he even suggests that we can use sleep to our advantage by, giving our subconscious specific instructions before we drift off.
Oh, I like that. So instead of worrying about all the things that I need to do tomorrow, I could focus on, visualizing a successful outcome for a project or even like a solution to a problem I'm struggling with. Exactly. And he shares this incredible story about a man who won a company prize for solving this complex engineering problem while he was taking a nap.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, he had been struggling with this problem for days. And, it wasn't until he relaxed and allowed his subconscious mind to kind of take over that the solution came to him, just popped into his head while he was asleep.
So it's like his subconscious mind was working on the problem in the background.
Yeah.
And then the solution just kind of emerged.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the power of the subconscious. He also highlights the work of Professor Agassiz, this naturalist, who used his dreams to actually solve a scientific puzzle. He was trying to decipher the impression of a fossil fish, and he couldn't figure it out, and then he slept on it, and literally the solution came to him in a dream.
And I know that Robert Louis Stevenson, the author, he did this too. He would give his subconscious like instructions to come up with story ideas while he slept,
Yeah.
and it really helped his writing.
It's amazing, isn't it? It really suggests that we can train our subconscious mind to work on our behalf, even while we're asleep.
Now, speaking of, tapping into that subconscious wisdom, let's talk about relationships,
Okay.
because this is something a lot of people are curious about.
Yeah.
How to use the power of the subconscious
Yeah.
to, attract the right partner.
Well, it all starts with, aligning our beliefs with our desires. If we're telling ourselves we're not worthy of love or, we're carrying around baggage from past relationships,
Yeah.
that's what we're going to attract.
We need to kind of clean up our mental and emotional closets before we can invite a new partner in.
That's a great way to put it. And then Murphy suggests, visualizing the qualities we desire in a partner,
Mm-hmm.
like creating a mental mood board
Okay.
for our ideal relationship.
It's like we're creating a profile on a dating app,
Yeah.
but for our subconscious mind.
Exactly. Focusing on those qualities that really matter to us.
Right. And he tells this great story about a woman who used this method to break free from a pattern of attracting, emotionally unavailable men.
Mm-hmm.
She had been through several, painful relationships, but by consistently visualizing the qualities of a loving and supportive partner,
Yeah.
she was able to attract, a completely different kind of man into her life.
It's like she finally upgraded her relationship software.
Yeah.
And as a result, she started attracting a higher quality match.
Now, let's not, shy away from the tough stuff, because Murphy doesn't really sugarcoat things when it comes to divorce.
Yeah, divorce is definitely a reality for many people.
Yeah, so even though we're talking about, the power of the subconscious to attract and create things,
Yeah.
he acknowledges that sometimes relationships just don't work out.
He does. And, he actually dedicates a whole chapter to the topic of divorce. But he really emphasizes the importance of forgiveness
Okay.
in these situations, both for ourselves and for our partners.
So that makes sense, because holding on to, resentment and anger just keeps us stuck in the past.
Exactly. And, he also makes this interesting point about avoiding the temptation to air our dirty laundry with friends and family.
It's like keep your relationship drama off of social media.
Right, exactly, because involving other people can just complicate matters and create unnecessary negativity.
So it's better to focus on, healing and moving forward,
Yeah.
whether you choose to stay in the relationship or not.
Exactly. And Murphy reminds us that ultimately happiness in a relationship comes from within ourselves.
So we can't expect our partners to make us happy.
No.
It's about cultivating our own sense of inner peace and contentment.
That's a really important point, and it actually leads to this bigger idea that happiness is a choice. It's a decision that we make every day.
So even if things aren't going perfectly,
Yeah.
we can still choose to focus on the good
Exactly.
and, find joy in the simple things.
He tells this story about a farmer in Ireland who made it a habit to be happy. He would wake up every morning and bless his family, his crops, his cattle, give thanks for all his blessings.
Yeah, it's a nice reminder that gratitude can go a long way.
It does. It really does. And, it's not about denying negative emotions or
Wow.
pretending that everything's perfect.
Yeah.
It's about consciously choosing to focus on the good,
Yeah.
even in the midst of challenges.
So it's like training our minds to look for that silver lining.
That's a great way to put it. And it actually brings us to another important point, which is, how to deal with difficult people.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because, let's face it, we all encounter them in our lives.
Oh, yeah, whether it's a demanding boss or a critical coworker or, a negative family member.
Exactly. And Murphy, he believes that, difficult people are often acting out of their own pain and insecurity.
It's like hurt people hurt people.
Exactly. And he suggests that by understanding this, we can actually choose to respond with compassion rather than, reacting with anger or resentment.
So instead of getting caught up in their negativity,
Yeah,
we can try to see things from their perspective.
exactly. And, he even suggests this technique for dealing with difficult people,
Okay, what's that?
mentally blessing them and wishing them well.
Wow, that's interesting. So instead of, getting sucked into their drama,
Yeah,
we're sending out positive energy,
exactly.
both for their benefit and for ours.
It's about creating a more harmonious environment.
Yeah. It's like saying kill them with kindness.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about fear again, because you mentioned that Murphy sees it as this, you know, major obstacle to living a fulfilling life.
He does, and he emphasizes that, fear is often based on false beliefs and limiting assumptions that
Yeah.
we've internalized over time.
So it's not always based in reality.
No, it's often based on our own negative thoughts and beliefs, and he encourages us to, examine our fears, to question their validity, and to replace them with thoughts of courage and confidence.
So instead of letting fear paralyze us,
Yeah.
we can choose to, face it head on and replace it with more empowering thoughts.
That's the idea. He even suggests this technique of mentally facing our fears almost like a dress rehearsal for real life situations.
Okay, so like if you're afraid of public speaking, you might visualize yourself, giving a successful presentation, feeling confident, engaging the audience.
Exactly. He gives an example of a young woman who used this technique to overcome her stage fright, and she ended up, delivering this captivating speech.
It shows how powerful visualization can be, in
Yeah.
changing our responses to those fear-inducing situations.
Absolutely. And, each time we face a fear and move through it, we grow stronger and more confident.
It's like the only way out is through.
Exactly. Now, Murphy actually distinguishes between what he calls normal fear, which is a natural survival mechanism,
Right.
and abnormal fear, which is often irrational and debilitating.
Okay, so like, it's okay to be cautious and aware of